Welcome to Stitch of Fate. Since we'll be portraying vampires who have left their mortal lives behind, expect there are gonna be bad things that deal with difficult themes and content meant for an adult audience.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to your first little behind-the-scenes Patreon. We'll call it like a minisode, I guess. First and foremost, thank you all patrons for supporting the show and allowing us to even do more content on here and provide you a Season 2 of Stitch of Fate. We're super excited to do this, and one of the first things we're going to be doing for you is a little one-on-one about an hour long with each of the players, giving you a brief little snapshot of an important moment in their past, something that led them to the road that they ended up on in Season 1 and that you'll see them continuing down in Season 2. And one of the first, or should I say the first player I'll be playing with is Mr. Mark Meer himself. Good evening or good afternoon, good sir, whatever. I don't know. Time is not really real, right? Time is...
It is a flat circle, as they say. Hello, and yes, good to be back, Mathas, and good to see you. And how was your Christmas break?
It was wonderful. Kept it quiet, kept it safe, and I hope you did the same.
I did. Mostly watching things on the television.
Me too. Mandalorian was like my big thing, catching that every week. So it was a good time. No complaints whatsoever. But with Mark here, it means Max is here, and we're very excited to see what we're going to be looking at here with Max, because it's an event we've heard referenced many a time over Season 1. A particular thorn in Max's side that became a driving force, as we'll see over the course of his unlife. So we'll kind of quiet things down, set the scene, and find out what Maxwell is up to. And the first thing we're met with isn't a vision or a sight of anything. It's a ringing in the ears. And that ringing in the ears persists for a few seconds before that pitch darkness eventually comes to. And what we see before us is mounds of concrete and rebar piled next to each other, collapsed ceiling leading upward to a New York City street that you can hear the horns honking in the distance. But below, piles of smoke and steam rise from these parts of concrete. But before we see any movement or any freedom, any rats maneuvering, or any sign of life sitting amongst this concrete, we're met with a white screen and a flashback. We may still be in the very same place that our eyes saw just moments ago, but now instead of that ringing sound and piles of destruction, we're met with the sounds of celebration, joyous conversation and laughter, and people leaning up against the concrete walls having drinks. A familiar voice is actually cackling in the background, the deep guttural laughter of our dear Maxwell. Clearly at the end of a joke he told to a couple of his own ghouls who laugh along with him, not sure out of genuine humor or because they feel like they have to, but it still helps to fill the room with all that laughter. But Maxwell looks very different in this moment. We've seen him in his bathrobe and his trench coat and on the down and outs, but now he's surrounded by something that is truly his. Not a closet, not a broom, but an entire haven with decorations, I imagine. This is a Halloween celebration. Maxwell, what did your haven look like on the final celebration of Halloween that we say Max enjoyed?
Right, so this is Halloween night 2010. We see Max, as you mentioned, surrounded by his various ghouls. There are also a number of animal ghouls walking around. You can see Max himself, as mentioned, he's not wearing what we've seen him wear before. He's actually wearing a Batman costume. But this is an old school Batman costume. This is it's not even like the Adam West Batman. This is it looks like it was homemade, probably custom made for him. It's the Batman costume from the 1940s radio movie, the serial Batmans, like the early stuff, with the slightly askew bat ears and the very simple bat on the front. But as far as a reproduction of that costume, it is exact.
I love it.
And of course, Max's actual ears are sticking out from the side of this mask. So the mask has been somewhat customized so it fits on his giant bat head.
Does Maxwell's ears almost take the place of where Batman's ears?
Yeah,
would be?
basically, yes.
I love it.
Yeah. But he's also got, like, at the top of the head, there are, like, the two little points that are sticking up as well.
Oh, of course. You gotta keep it real to the costume.
Exactly. Max is in the middle of, or just finishing up telling a joke, which he was laughing at his own joke, of course. And he has a large red Solo cup, which is full of blood. You can see that there are Solo cups all over the place, sitting on top of stacks of comics and whatnot. Max is a collector, but he's not so precious about his collection, as we have established. But there is quite a collection. There's long boxes. There are certain framed comic books sitting, hanging on the wall. Also, some pieces of original comic book art stretching all the way back to the Golden Age. In fact, most of the examples of this are from Golden Age comics as well.
Can I get, as Maxwell, his laughter kind of finishes echoing outward through his lips, and he kind of gazes around and enjoys just looking at those that he invited to his haven to enjoy and partake in one of his favorite holidays, and gazing upon his collection. Can I get a wits awareness check from Max? Yeah, there it is, with 3 successes. Max, you know those you invited here. You kept it to people that you trust and are pretty much yours and your property exclusively. Your own animal ghouls are traipsing around the area, and you have plenty of ghouls and retainers and contacts that who have served you for over the course of decades that you as well trust. But as you take a look around, over in a room just past one of the concrete doors that you have open, that's kind of serving as an area where you store some of your more useful alcohols when dealing with those who drink it, you actually see what seems to be a figure, a silhouette, dart down the door and off to the left. Dude, not visible long enough where you're able to actually get any detail, but again, as you look around your room and you kind of see everybody around, everybody that should be here, that was allowed to be here, is clearly accounted for. The ghouls looking up to you as they realize your face kind of goes from one of laughter to a more serious one, and the younger male kind of looks up and he's like, well, is something wrong, sir? Is there something I can do? Can I get you something to drink, or maybe one of your comics?
No. Who was that?
He looks over to his left, and so does the girl that was next to him. And who was what, sir?
Hey, you didn't bring any party crashers with you, did you, Jerry?
He looks to you with a one raised eyebrow, and as he's plenty of times have heard you ask questions that way, and he gets a little bit of an obvious fear on his face that crawls across. No, why would I do that? Why would I wouldn't want to bring anybody in here that doesn't belong here. Can I get a wits insight check from you?
That'll just be a straight wits roll for Max, of course.
Hell yeah, perfect. 1. It's not necessarily anything that he does. He though clearly seems afraid. It's what the young woman does that kind of catches you a little bit confused. As you're interrogating this person, she pulls on your arm and just kind of pulls you in the opposite direction. Like, don't worry about it. Let's drink and just have a good time. I'm sure it's nobody, and we can have one of your... And she kind of calls for one of your... what animals would be nearby right now?
I would say most likely the infamous albino alligator, Pinky. He's usually guarding the actual main entrance. So this is probably some rats and cats, that sort of thing.
She kind of points at gestures over at a huddle of like 3 different rats that are milling about. She's like, why don't you have one of your creatures go investigate and don't stress about it? This is your favorite night of all year.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm gonna check this out for myself.
Max continues towards the source of where he saw this darting shadow. He's passing, of course, not only comic books and comic art, there's also lots of memorabilia, the typical things that one might find in the collection of a nerd who's been collecting for decades and decades. So, of course, there are action figures and things like, character-specific piggy banks and things like that, stuff that you might have only been able to get for a 2-year period in the 1950s, that sort of thing.
And much like the comic books, is it haphazardly stacked around, kind of not particularly placed, all these other collectible toys? Or are they on a shelf in some way? I'm curious.
To the untrained eye, it might look haphazard, but Max, much like Smog, knows every piece of his collection and exactly where they're supposed to be.
I love picturing it like a dragon's hoard. That's perfect.
Yes. And unlike a typical occasion, of course, there are Halloween decorations. There are jack-o'-lanterns and various things, but many of which Max carved himself, scattered throughout the area. He seems fairly intent, though he's not that concerned yet at this point.
As you pass by and we see the costume, the cape of your costume kind of whipping towards the ground and passing by the camera, and you're approaching the door frame to where you saw the silhouette seem to run down. Once again, there's a clasp, this time much tighter on your arm, as you turn again to see the same young lady throwing her arms around you and actually giving you a hard tug and be like, don't, you're ruining a good time. Your paranoia is getting the better of you, Max. Come on. Besides, it's about that time of the night. And she starts pulling her shirt down, baring her neck and her collarbone at you.
Okay, Cindy. I wasn't really paranoid before, but you're really contributing to that right now. What the hell is going on?
Nothing. That's what I'm trying to make a point of. You're worrying about nothing. Anytime you've ever gotten nervous, you sent one of your rats and cats off, but now you're going to leave me and Jerry back there to go investigate what? A shadow? I was expecting something more tonight.
What the hell is going on here, kid?
She gives you a very blank stare. How long? There's a couple beats that pass before any action is taken. Would Max say or do anything?
Yeah, Max is actually, his suspicions have been raised.
Like, you're acting kind of squirrely tonight, if you don't mind me saying so.
Clearly presented with, and her not being subtle about stopping you from going through that doorway, and almost a desperate situation. She does freeze for a moment, glancing at you. And then she glances down, her eyes. Can I get a wits awareness one more time, please? See where her eyes dart. I'm looking for you to beat a difficulty of 3.
That is a 1, I believe.
That is a 1. You did not. You did not. So she is actually going to get a quick attack on you here. Can I get a dexterity athletics check from you? So she rolls a single success in her dex melee check, unfortunately. And you rolled 3 successes on yours. While you're not able to see it before it happens, very quickly she dips down to her right thigh-high boot. And you notice now as her right hand dips that the tip of the zipper actually was dipped down just about an inch. And at the very top, you can see what seems to be a sliver of wood that she slides her hand down, grasps and slides out a makeshift stake clearly being bore in her right hand. She brings it up over her shoulder and tries to thrust it toward the center of your body, though clearly not trained or really aiming anywhere specific. And Max is able to see this coming before it makes any contact and quickly able to snatch her hand and push her out of the way. She goes a few steps to her left and kind of with a good foot of missing, whiffs completely. Instinctually, Pinky turns over and you can hear the heavy footsteps and the low rumble as he starts making his way over to you. The gentle, like, growly hiss bearing forth from his mouth. But now you get an action. What would you like to do? Pinky's like a round or 2 from getting anywhere nearby.
Max basically just squeezes her wrist until she drops the stake.
Yep, we may make a strength brawl check as you kind of reach out and grab her wrist again after having pushed her off. And like you said, just going to squeeze until it breaks and the stake drops.
Okay, so that will be strength brawl. And will I add potence to this? Yeah, I'll add potence, I think.
I was going to say, that's up to you, good sir. I don't know.
Well, I think he's got 8 dice, so he should be all right for right now. And this is one of his ghouls. Like, he's not... He's still not quite sure what's going on, even with the stake.
Yep.
And as he does this, he's like,
what is this? Some kind of Halloween prank?
That's 3 successes, and then you added potence to that, so you're just going to add another, 5 on top? Or what's your potence score? I'm sorry.
Potence is 2.
Okay, so another 2 on top of that. So you kind of, it doesn't take much. While she is a ghoul, and she'll heal rather quickly, and she certainly can take a bit more of a beating than any normal mortal. It doesn't take long before you can hear the kind of squeezing of the bones, leading to a snap of the wrist.
I will say, that, again, Max is not he's basically he's just trying to drop the stake, yeah.
So you just keep turning and squeezing until it gets to a point where she can't feasibly hold on to the thing anymore. And then eventually her fingers go stiff and long enough where she does eventually drop it. And the clatter of the wood onto concrete kind of rings across as Pinky finishes approaching, not attacking, just standing there, and then lets out another hiss that kind of from the throat outward. She gives a little bit of a squeal, but then kind of just looks up to you.
Yeah, what are you, nuts? What's going on here?
Her head darts to the left, looking down the hallway, and then back up to you, and then kind of bites her own lip, and then struggles a tiny bit. Can I get a wits insight again? I know that's just a wits roll for you, but
It's just wits.
it's not that high of a difficulty I'm looking for. So we'll see if you maybe get one. Oh, you rolled 2. There's clearly as you're kind of holding her wrist and interrogating her, and she looks down the hallway. It feels like she's not trying to actually kill you here. If something seems like off, but her intent was to kill you, that was incredibly sloppy. And you've known Cindy for years. That doesn't fit the pattern with who this person is as a person.
Okay, what would if Max is just strictly using like an intimidate? He just wants to get to the bottom of what's going on, and literally just sort of like pulls her close and goes, "What the hell is going on?"
Manipulation, intimidation. If you're looking to just, like you said, bring her inches of your face, your bat-like facial features bearing down on her, your teeth all pointed and jagged. With 3 successes, did you want to use a willpower? You could re-roll 2 if you wanted to.
I'll go with the 3 successes for right now. Again, Max is not. He's completely flabbergasted by this, but he is starting to get angry.
Okay, so you bring her close within inches again, and then as your fangs bear down and your hot a breath falls out of your mouth as you speak these words, she just kind of looks to you, and she still looks defiant. There's not a shred of sorrow or pity on her, but she does look to you with this kind of defiant look, and she just says, "Sorry, Max. Business is business."
Business is business.
You have her with with her right wrist. Do you allow her left hand to stay free?
No, I think he grabbed the other one, sort of put so that he can hold both of them with one, and he's going to try again. And it's like,
Cindy, I'm a pretty patient man, and, I've been having a good time tonight, so maybe I'm in a more forgiving mood than I might usually be. But I'm going to ask you again, what the hell was that about?
And as you kind of make it even more clear and what a nice guy you've truly been, and Max was, and always has been a nice guy to all those under his employ. There's no bad treatment to those who have earned his trust and have worked with him for as long as a ghoul would have to earn that gift, so to speak. Cindy simply looks up to you again and simply says, "It's been great serving with you, boss. It ain't personal, but I couldn't turn down the offer and I just need to buy him some time. It's probably too late now." And she looks down the hallway. And she shrugs.
Max is just going to basically pop her, like just try to knock her out, knock her unconscious. Yeah.
Go ahead. Maybe a strength brawl. You're only going a difficulty of 1 because you have her held by the wrists where she's motionless, so she doesn't really get defensive roll.
And I'll be adding potence to this, obviously.
Yep. Okay. With 3 successes and then another 2 on top of potence, on top of the damage you've already done to her. The swift L, you probably just take the back of your hand. How would you go about it? I'm curious.
He headbutts her.
So we just see you kind of bring her up and just a crack, and there is a loud crack as her head lags to the side instantly, and Max just has an unconscious Cindy in his arms now.
And now, even though it's becoming rapidly apparent that she's betrayed him somehow, like, Max doesn't just let her fall to the ground. He sort of, like, catches her and, like, gently lowers her to the ground. And then immediately bustles off in the direction that she was nodding in, like, what's going on.
Yep, it's exactly where you saw the silhouette as well. So you go through the door frame, leading past the stored alcohol that you have here. Please continue.
As he does so, he sort of says, he's like, "Okay, he does the traditional, 'Hey, Rube!' The old circus thing that he's sort of taught his ghouls is like the, come running, there's trouble. It's like,
okay, looks like we got a fox in the hen house here, folks.
All your ghouls from animal to mortal, to human rather, all stop what they're doing. Whatever music is still playing in the background is still going to play, but they all kind of come into attention.
I should mention the music that is playing is the Monster Mash.
What else would it be?
Of course it's the Monster
Mash. It's perfect. So, but all your ghouls turn to face you. Is there any direction you give them, or is it more just like you have them scatter and they start looking on their own?
Yeah, it's like, we got trouble here, folks. Look around. Make sure... look for anything suspicious. I don't know what the hell's going on here.
Jerry actually, as you kind of say that, and the animals and most of the humans scattered, Jerry actually walks up to Cindy. He's like, "Should I?" And he kind of like looks to her throat. He's like, "Are we dealing with?"
Not yet. Make sure she's restrained.
Got it. And he just puts his arms under her and carries her off to a corner where there's some rope piled up, and he starts pulling out rope and wrapping it around her wrists and then wrapping it around her legs, and goes to hog tie her and kind of makes sure she's in a position where she can't do much. And then he too goes off to look. You start going down the past the room where you have your alcohol stored. Now, what other rooms would be in your haven? We obviously have the kind of the grand room where there's like the display and you were having the party and everything. But you're obviously where you sleep wouldn't be the same room where you kind of have everything on display. I imagine the rest of your haven isn't all that big. What would the rest of your haven look like if there isn't even much left to your haven at all?
This is actually a fairly extensive haven. Of course, he does have his private sleeping areas. It's very, obviously it's quite well sealed off and well defended. A nice, comfortable casket to sleep in. Something that closes up so that even though that we're underground beneath the sewers, like there's just no chance of anything getting in.
Sunproof.
He also has like just a lounge off the main area that he has. He's quite a movie buff as well. Like as we know, Max is a big fan of pop culture over the decades. So I'd say at this point he still has like a lot of VHS tapes. So there's.
I love it.
Yeah, there's and he also has reel to reel, like the old style film strips and things like that. And
God, he lost so much good stuff.
He had quite a bit. It's like any collector would weep at what Max lost in the destruction of his haven. So yeah, there's all manner of audiovisual stuff.
So each room kind of has just a different feel to the sort of collectibles that seem to kind of reside within it, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
And what we actually find is as he goes through is that as we're passing those reels, that's where the silhouetted figure becomes more clear as they stand very openly in the middle in a pile of these metallic reels kind of leaning up against each other. Some have tape that have scratched on titles, and others seemingly just a magic marker was written on the metal itself where the tape once was. But there stands in the center a Nosferatu. Not one that looks like you. One that looks more modern knights. Some that just seem a little bit less monstrous and a little bit more wounded, with a gaping wound off the side of his right cheek where you can see all of his sharp teeth constantly bearing down, and a slight drool comes down the side. You're not entirely sure as you stare at this man who's wearing a white t-shirt and a green and red tie loosely tied towards the center and jean shorts with bare feet. As he looks to you, you're not entirely sure if he's smiling or not, because his face seems to always be stuck in at least some sort of grin. But he doesn't say any words. He simply openly stares at you with his hands outstretched to the side as to say, "Come at me."
Well. Happy Halloween, fella.
Oh, hi. It's me, Vera. While you're taking a break, take a moment to visit dieharddice.com. Die Hard Dice is a sponsor of this little podcast. They make what we do possible. During checkout, make sure to use the code STITCH-JAN, and you'll get 10% off your entire purchase. And we get a little cut for our own resources. Sounds like we only roll with the best.
He takes a deep breath through his teeth, and he just kind of lets out a I have been waiting for you for about 10, 15 seconds now. She did her job well. You're too late, fucko.
Okay, pal, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave.
Max sort of strides forward. This room that has all the film in it, we do notice that there's some World War II memorabilia in this room as well. Some helmets, various helmets, and like there's even an unexploded shell and some other things like that. And Max sort of reaches over to one shelf and pulls a bayonet forth.
Okay, pal. You don't get out of here. This is going up your ass. I try to be polite to guests, but you wasn't invited.
He takes a couple steps back as his arms stay outstretched. He's like, "Yeah, it's that easy? I'm out of here then. Have a great night." And he actually does try to walk widely around you.
As he goes by, of course, Max grabs him.
Yeah, of course. So go ahead and make me a strength brawl check as you go to grapple him. God, man, even with a decent pool, I'm rolling poorly. I only got 2 successes. So you got a minimum of 3, so another 5, negate 2. You're going to grab him. You successfully are able to. As he goes wide, we simply see Max kind of just, he's not going to let this guy go. And with a quick few steps, even catching him off guard, thinking maybe there was an air of confidence in your words that had him believe that you were actually going to allow him to pass through, you step into at such a speed that he's unable to react fast enough. And where do you grab him? Are you going for the throat? Are you going for the arms?
Yeah, Max sort of like grabs him, like, armbar up by the throat. And then once he gets him into the wall, he just immediately starts pounding on his face. He's going to soften him up a bit before he asks any questions.
So we see again, like you said, Max like taking those quick steps. His left forearm goes under this guy's neck, and he gets careened maybe 2.5, 3 feet to the nearest wall. His feet actually coming up underneath him, showing just how strong Max is. And as he collides with the wall, you don't indent the concrete, but a couple of hairline fractures go spiral out from where the main impact was. You may now make me another strength brawl check as you kind of reach your fist up and you begin beating this guy. He's going to get a defensive roll, but it's going to be at a massive penalty. No, he's actually going to do a strength brawl check to try and free himself, but at a penalty. 1 success for me. Oh my God. And that's oh my God. So you rolled, okay. Let's see, 7, 8, 9. You rolled 10 successes with the critical.
Okay.
10 successes. That's what, did you beat him until he goes into torpor? Is that what happens? Like as soon as he enters torpor, does he go, or does you just like let stop? Because 9 damage is going to beat him into the point of going unconscious here.
I think Max is basically just like he wanted to soften him up before talking to him.
You want to stop? You want to stop short then?
Yeah, so it's like
Boom, boom. Okay, last chance, pal. You got a real attitude problem, so I suggest you leave that at the door. If you want to still be in one, you want that head still attached to that neck. You're gonna tell me what the hell is going on here? What are you doing in my place?
As the camera hovers just over your shoulder, we actually see as like 3 solid punches happen. The last one pulls out, and we just see a mix of saliva and vitae kind of careening from his cheek in your fist as you pull it out, and a few of his actually sharp teeth falling forward onto the concrete ground. He takes a couple of deep breaths, his eye just very loosely able to look at you as the other one is too beaten to actually open, and he's able to just barely get the word Gustav. That's it, simply Gustav.
As soon as Max hears that Gustav, the rest of those 9 points, or like, however, like yeah, he just finishes him.
Do we have a fury frenzy check that we need to make a roll for? Does that hit that kind of barrier for our dear Maxwell?
I'd say hearing that word on this night would probably, yeah.
And with 4, you actually are able to resist going into a fury frenzy. So you still, it's basically each punch additional that you lay into this guy after hearing that name, you can feel that tightness in your chest. You can feel your veins filling with your vitae and the urge to let it go. The beast is rattling at the cage and it is furious. If he's even remotely connected to Gustav, he deserves to be dusted just like he does.
Beyond that, as far as Max knows, at this stage, Gustav has been dead for decades. Yeah,
exactly. So okay. As you're kind of like pulling back there, and the beast is rattling, desperately rattling, and it feels like your ribcage to come free. You do remember that the only reason you thought you survived and he didn't is you're better than him. You're better than letting that take over. You're better than being the worst that your kind have to offer. And as you pull back that last punch, and he's clearly in torpor before you, completely bloodied, and his face is unrecognizable, you stop short of dusting this guy. What do you do then with his torpored body kind of just up against the wall?
He just sort of grabs it by the scruff and drags it out into the hall. Max looks around the room like, what the hell was he doing in here?
Wits awareness, if you take a quick look. If you want to do a longer look, that takes more time. It's a wits investigate, but that does take time, and you don't know how much time you have.
Max actually sets up a call. Like, he calls out the name of, because, of course, Max is not good at this sort of thing. He calls one of his more observant ghouls into the room.
Sure.
Just like, Pete, get in here.
There's not much time before you hear the shuffling of feet as Pete he's one of those shuffle walkers. He doesn't actually lift his feet up, and you can hear the as Pete comes in. Hey, what's up? Yeah, sorry. I didn't oh, fuck. And as he like sees the mess of a stump on this guy's head.
I just caught this piece of shit skulking around in here. He must have been up to something.
I'll start fucking looking around, I guess.
Make sure you do. Don't leave any stone unturned, all right?
You got it. And without even a hint of hesitation, he starts in one corner and he starts piling things and moving things and looking as best he can. You're going to now and then take this body and drag it out.
I drag it out into the main room and basically put up a call to everyone. It's like,
Okay, everybody. As far as I can figure, Cindy managed to smuggle this piece of crap into our haven. I don't know if there's anybody else in here, but the party's over as of right now. Okay? Back to work, everybody. You scour this place. Look for anything that looks out of place, all right?
There's a bit of nervous kind of murmuring amongst a couple of the ghouls next to each other, but none that seem like you have anything to worry about. But as soon as you say get going, it stops instantly, and they follow your orders. They start scattering to different rooms and covering as many corners as they can. And the animals that are not smart enough to follow those particular orders hover near you, like the rats and whatnot. They can look, but they can't follow super complicated orders.
Max calls Jerry over. Jerry's sort of like his...
Jerry, the way, that kind of tied up Cindy, he makes his way back over, and he looks to you, and he's still in his suit now, slightly undone, his tie loosened and stuff. But he makes his way over to you. Yeah, I'm sorry, she's still out cold.
Look, Jerry, you're relatively close to Cindy. You noticed her being a little weird lately?
He takes a minute to think. I'm going to make a roll for his memory. He actually thinks for a minute, and he's like, I didn't think it was weird. But I guess the past few weeks, I mean, we've been going out more, and it's been more on her dime. She seemed to come into a little bit more money recently. I didn't think anything of it. Just thought things were going good for her outside of, in the other world, mortal world, not this one.
Yeah, well, I think I know what the source of that there funds was. Look, Jerry.
He actually takes a step in closer. He's like, do you mean to look into her business accounts and see if she's still on the up and up?
Yeah.
I've got access.
I know she ain't on the up and up, but here's the thing. I got an idea where the source of that money is. Look, Jerry, I've told you about Gustav, right?
A couple stories. They were really funny, and he seemed like an idiot.
Word to the wise. I'm thinking maybe he ain't so dead as he ought to be.
How's that possible?
Because this piece of shit just mentioned his name.
As you kind of pull up, the guy's face is just a mess of blood and kind of gore. He kind of winces a tiny bit, and he's like, what? Okay, what does that mean, though? You can get him again, right? You fucking got the guy who got in here. He's clearly not doing a good job.
Yeah. Except that ain't Gustav's style. He tends to pull things off, you know what I mean? That attack that Cindy launched on me, that was no more than a distraction. I think we're still dealing with the warm-up here. We haven't seen the main act.
Oh, should we get the hell out of here? Should we start getting ready to fight? Is he here? Do you think he's here?
He could be. I don't know. Okay, look, everybody on high alert. We may have to ditch this place.
I'm going to get my gun. And he just starts scurrying off to where he tends to spend most of his nights when he's sleeping here.
Max, having announced that the party's over, he immediately, so he throws the body of this guy off on another couple of ghouls, tells them, obviously he's in torpor, but he's just like, restrain this guy. It's like, I don't know, maybe think about cutting off his arms and legs. And he just basically bustles to, one of the rooms is probably like just his big costume closet or whatnot. So he's stripping off the Batman costume already. He's getting into what would be his business clothes, which is, flak jacket. At this point, probably quite a well-maintained trench coat. And various things, strapping on weapons, getting ready for action.
As we see kind of Max in the middle of kind of suiting up like a proper modern day retelling of Batman, like a Christopher Nolan style Batman is kind of the transformation we're seeing here. After he slides on the last of his gloves and we hear him checking just checking his weaponry to make sure everything's loaded properly. We actually hear Pete off in the distance shouting, Max, get in here now.
Okay, Max, as quickly as possible, makes his way over there.
Darting out of your room, down the hallway through the main room, and then back into the room where the movie reels are, you actually see Pete standing up with both of his hands on his head, running through his hair, kind of pacing rapidly. He catches you as soon as you walk in, catches eyes. He's like, do you know anything about explosive? I don't know shit about this shit. And as he walks you over in the corner, kind of buried under a bunch of the movie reels, is like this clear makeshift home explosive about the size of two shoe boxes, stacked next to each other and on top of each other, with a bunch of different colored wires and a timer running down that's at 47 seconds. And and Pete looks over, looks to you and just makes an empty gesture like, what the fuck do I do?
Get the hell out of here, kid! Everybody, evacuate!
And without a second thought, Pete starts taking off, and he actually stumbles a couple of times and falls face first on top of the movies as he slips in a panic and keeps stumbling to get up, but seems to get eventually kind of pushing himself up. Does Max wait for him, or does he...
Max basically just jumps in. As soon as he sees he's falling down, he picks him up, throws him over his shoulder.
Over the shoulder, and you start running.
And starts running. As Max is going by, like, he just grabs from the top of the table a bunch of his favorite Golden Age comics that he was clearly reading and perusing, and stuffs them into his coat. There's clearly not going to be time to rescue anything else, and he books it. He starts running.
As you make your way out of that room, back into the main room, the only animal sitting there waiting is Pinky for you. He lets out a hiss and a growl, and seems to be like waiting for you.
It's like, come on, outside, everybody, get out of here!
As you lead, he then follows as though he was waiting for you to lead the way first, making sure you got out safe. And you're clambering your way towards the exit of this place as best you can. You're not counting the time, but you know 47 seconds isn't a hell of a lot. As far as you can tell, at least a few people are getting out. There seems to be in the distance a few people with you can hear the sounds of the honking horns in the city above. That means somebody opened. Somebody must have gotten out. Because as you're stepping through the main room into the hallway that leads out, that's when the camera cuts to white and we simply hear the ringing in the ears. We are brought back to the imagery of the rubble, the night after all of this went down. Can I get a rouse check from you as that would have knocked you out, and you would be waiting until the next night until you wake up again? You get a little hungrier. Max, you hear nothing. You are feeling pressure on top of you, and as you attempt to move initially, you are bound down and pierced down by this immense amount of weight. Lucky for you, you don't need to breathe, and being under here is just a matter of time before somebody finds you, if it gets to that point. But as you kind of shift around and you move your weight, you realize, there's a piece of rebar that's coming right from your upper shoulder down out through your lower ribs. And as you kind of try and turn and shift, it's almost like pinning you in a very particular position.
Okay, I'm gonna reach up and just try to, rather than pulling it through myself, I'm just gonna try to crumble the concrete that's around the rebar and free it up. And then I'll be walking around with it stuck through me, but...
Yeah, so you're going to try and break it free before... Okay, I like that. Strength brawl. I expected you to try to twist yourself, and I was like, ooh, Dex athletics. It'll be hard. Never mind.
And adding potence to this, obviously, yes.
So it'll just go right through, yep. There's a slight... You can hear the creaking of the rebar in the concrete as you're knocking it away, and eventually kind of a snap, and you're able to kind of loosen it and pull it free. You're now not pinned in a particular position. However, you are... you do have concrete piled on top of you. You cannot see anything beyond it. It'll be a couple of strength brawl checks to start heaving and pushing these things off, if that's what you'd like to do.
Yeah, I reckon that's what I'm going to do.
Let's do it.
Okay, strength brawl.
Or strength athletics would work too. Your call.
Hey, strength brawl. I'm best at that.
That's what I figured. Whew. That is another 5, 6, 7, 8. You have 8 with the crit there. So once again, this piece of rebar kind of sticking through you, it technically has done, it's done a one superficial or 1 blunt damage, but no aggravated damage. And as you kind of readjust and are able to actually position yourself in a way where you can get good lift from your knees up and realize there's enough space for you to get your arms up and over your shoulder, with a good 5 or 10 seconds, you can hear all the concrete shifting on top, everything falling apart, and just as you keep pushing, you're eventually able to loosen it up where you can give it one good heave. And with that, a piece of concrete falls and tumbles forward, and you can actually stand up a little bit. And you realize where you are at this moment as you look around and see the sights before you. The piles of rubble and concrete and what looks like maybe the foot of Pinky nearby. You stand in what was once the doorway and threshold from the main room where the comics in your main collection was to the hallway of the exit. You can only see that and nothing more. The person or kindred you are carrying is probably buried somewhere nearby, and how many of your own ghouls didn't even make it out and are dead under the rubble that leads outward is unknowable. As you look up, you can see maybe 50 to 100 feet off the actual blinking red emergency lights of vehicles that have parked around the collapsed area of the street out that way. It's going to be a while before they can even get anywhere near where your haven once was, and even if they do come across it, they might just think it was a party by some people and teenagers or young adults. Continuing to look around, it's realized that your collection has been destroyed. What you've scavenged in your trench coat as you feel inside at least seems to have made it, though. Definitely beaten up and bent. Most everything else burnt, incinerated in the explosion, or destroyed as the rubble of your once haven fell upon them. Can I get another wits awareness from you as you stand up in this kind of, in this moment? And what does Max's face look like as all of this kind of falls in and he takes it all in?
Anyone who was around would have just heard under his breath,
No. Oh, no.
but it's less, he was a collector, he was quite obsessed with that thing, but it's finding the remains of Pinky and any other remains that he comes across.
And there are many. Pete did not make it, and you picked him up, and nearby his remains are crushed under it. And even if you were to try and rescue him by turning him kindred, it's been 24 hours, you're aware, and there's just no way. You're rolling so many 10s today, it's wild.
Ooh.
3 on wits awareness. While the settling and reshifting of rocks and concrete is a constant background noise, the sounds of what sounds like pebbles and whatnot tumbling, and the distant sirens not too far behind you above the street are definitely the only thing that would meet most people's ears. Max is kindred, and you can pick up on more subtle shifts. Somewhere out in the distance of your back in the main room over in a corner, you heard shifting. You've heard the concrete shifting. You can differentiate that between what sounded like light footsteps in an area you couldn't see. You look around again to see if you can see the body of the Nosferatu that you beat down senselessly, but even if you did and found him, or even if you didn't find him rather, there's no way he was waking up from that. That doesn't make any sense. What would Max do having heard just footsteps out in the distance somewhere?
He's going to try to he'll obfuscate, first of all.
Obfuscate? Absolutely. We see him kind of ripple out of existence for a moment.
And as he makes his way towards the source of the footsteps, he saw where Cindy had been restrained.
Yep, hog-tied up, yep.
Is that area accessible?
You can get over there. It would need a Dex Athletics check to get over there, not at like a slow pace, at like a normal pace, just because there's so much to climb over. Basically, if we were talking like, you're moving at half speed.
I think investigating the footsteps is probably the priority at this point.
Okay, so you're going to kind of just keep an eye out and as you kind of disappear. There's a moment where we see Max kind of wheel around some of the rubble and make his way toward that back area, or at least we believe Max is going out that way because that's the way the camera trains on the invisible figure that is our player. But before you see anything, there's actually a little voice that kind of echoes out. It's a young man's voice. I think I saw you stand up. Are you Max? I'm here looking for Max.
Max will work his way. Now, can he see this young man?
As you hear the voice and you start making your way over by a small shaft of light that seems to be coming through a cracked corner in the ceiling over by where your framed prize comics were. He does seem to be standing there almost cinematically, hands in his pocket. He's simply in jeans and a t-shirt. He looks plain, clean-shaven, short brown hair, and not a face you recognize. He certainly didn't look like he was part of the explosion. He's well too cleaned up for that.
Max works around right beside him and behind him. So this voice will be coming over his shoulder. And Max is also ready to strike at any moment. He had his weapons with him, right?
Yes, you have your weapons with you.
Yeah, I think the shotgun with the Dragon's Breath rounds, the sawed-off shotgun, that's probably the way to go in this case. So the voice would appear to come just over his shoulder.
Who wants to know?
Do you put the shotgun into his back? Would he feel it, or would you keep it like an inch out?
Keep it an inch out.
As you kind of say that, you actually let me make a roll for this guy real quick. Normally, when you say such things, there's always a reaction, maybe goosebumps on the neck. Whether this is telling or not, there doesn't seem to be any goosebumps that crawl across his neck, and he actually doesn't seem to wince whatsoever as you come over over to his ear. And his response is immediate, kept under his breath, but still vocal enough where you can hear him. And he says, "A friend, I promise."
What's your name, friend?
You can just call me John for now.
Hmm.
I come on behalf of somebody you've worked with in the past. I had to confirm that what we suspected actually happened, though. My condolences.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. What friend are we talking about?
A beautiful young woman who owns a club.
What? Vera?
He just nods. Can we speak face to face?
Max ripples into existence.
Yeah, sorry about the face. It's the only one I got.
He does turn around and there is a notable grimace. And as you actually, as he spins around, you get a good close-up look. He is wearing a little pin on his collar, the symbol cross scepters of a clan, all too familiar to anyone who knows of the Camarilla, the Ventru. Business promise. His hands go up in a very, not dramatic, but sarcastic show of submission. Vera looks out for her own. You guys have worked together a few times, am I right?
Yeah, that's right. What's Vera want?
Well, if my and hers assumptions are correct, you have about maybe a few hours before the feds and any law enforcement find their way down here. So staying down here is probably against better judgment for all kindred involved. We can set cleanup, find an excuse, make sure the masquerade is kept.
Okay, and to what do I owe this grand favor?
Vera ain't like that, though I think she should. It would benefit her. She simply wants to offer help to a friend. And if you need a place to stay, she said, please just come see her, and we'll work something out. For now, though, she simply wants to make sure you are kept okay and the masquerade kept.
Okay, I want something clear right from the beginning. I don't do no boons, you got it?
He raises an eyebrow and he says, I'll never understand that, but neither does she. Not unless necessary, anyway.
Fair enough. Lead the way, John.
He nods and reaches out a hand to shake yours.
Yeah, Max offers him his hand.
He after he gives us a firm handshake, though yours clearly more firm than his own. He turns and he looks back. He's like, I would make yourself scarce again. Just don't lose sight of me.
Fair enough.
And as you ripple out and he makes his way to a hole, we actually see John kind of crouch down a little bit and take a relatively large leap up and land up on the roads. He looks both ways and dusts his shoulders off, looks up behind him, hopes that you're following him.
Max clambers up, and then just before he goes on,
Just give me a minute.
He stops but doesn't say anything.
no one sees this, but Max kneels down at the hole, and you just hear like some muttering. If you were able to hear what he was saying, it would be a list of names.
And as we simply hear Max muttering to himself, a very small list of names, people that we'll learn of in the future, the camera will pull itself back from that scene with the Venture standing still waiting for Max and Max still down in the hole, very slowly fade to black and end there. Thanks, Mark, so much for this little one-on-one.
Thank you, Mathas. Thank you, yes.
I don't get to do one-on-ones too often, so it's always a unique little experience. I enjoyed it quite a bit, so thank you so much.
Thank you. No, I quite enjoyed it. And also getting to see, Max at the height, his haven at its height.
And I had to get a little look. It won't be the only flashback, I'm sure, in our time playing with Max, but it's our first really good look at it and the experience that led to its destruction and what set you on this path. Patrons, once again, thank you all so much for the support and allowing us to keep doing this stuff for you. We are excited to bring you more things in the future, and we'll see you in the next one-on-one. Goodbye, everybody.